Welcome to another episode of the American Iron Podcast. Today we have Robert and Lisa Daniels. If you guys want to introduce yourselves and what do you do?
Yeah, my name is Robert Daniels. I'm a IFBB pro classic physique bodybuilder. I've been bodybuilding for probably about 20 years, but I've been in the gym for probably about, close to, I think 40 years ago was when I first probably stepped into a gym. I'm 54 years old now, so yeah, like beginning of high school. So yeah, 40 years in the gym. I've been also a pro bodybuilder in the INBA, which is a natural bodybuilding federation. Started working out as a kid from Chicago, Illinois. Mostly did it for sports and to, just change the way I looked because I was a chubby kid at the time. So I decided, hey, I didn't want to live my life being a chubby kid or chubby guy. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It just isn't for me. So I just really got into working out and it carried on to other things, like bodybuilding. This is my wife, Lisa. You want to introduce yourself?
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
You got your 15 minutes. I guess I'll
15.
get 5. Okay. My name's Lisa Daniels. I do posing for various coaches. It doesn't matter who's coaching. I have a lot of investment in the actual competitor, whether they're a first-time competitor or they've been doing it a while. I've never competed myself, but being married almost 33 years, and yes, that can happen. You just take all the hope out of that person and they'll stay with you forever. But in watching all the different federations and the natural versus non-natural and seeing the potential in people and instilling that confidence when they get up on stage is what I enjoy the most out of it. I'm definitely the one that's in the audience that everybody can hear. If I say, you know what, glutes, I guarantee you every woman on that stage is going to get their glutes in order. But I never really worked out very much. I was an athlete in high school, track and field. And I had kids at like 22, 23, and I just blew up. And it didn't really dawn on me until I came back to American Iron. Rob has worked out here since it was like Flex. I came probably, I want to say almost 11 years ago, maybe almost 12 years ago. Yeah. And I started in the gym. It finally clicked. And then Tammy came up one day and noticed, hey, you're working hard. And when Tammy notices you and says, you're working hard, come here, I'm going to work with you. Your fate is sealed. You're either going to succeed or you're going to die, one or the other.
The highest honor.
Yes, it is absolutely the highest, and I value that friendship with her and, Roxy and Bob and a lot of the American Iron staff and people, that have been there for a very long time. So yeah, my fitness journey with her was great. Lost like 70 pounds, started building more muscle. But as everybody sees me in the gym, every other year there's something. Oh, what's wrong with your foot? What's wrong with your knee? Total knee replacement. So it's hard to bounce back. So I have that empathy for people that are in there, more so than probably the common trainer. But yeah, that's my story.
As far as the gym is concerned.
Yeah, I'm a shopaholic.
Yeah.
I work for Washoe County Foster Care Licensing and Adoption. And we're getting ready to have an awareness walk on the 14th of September at the marina. So anybody, that wants to support that. And we do have some major supporters in our gym, that have dealt with the foster care system or adoptive parents themselves. And so it's so eclectic here. If you ever need anything, there's always that one person in the gym that will go above and beyond no matter who you are. And that's why I think people love this community so very much. You have your people that are on the phones, you have your people that, bring their tripods in and it's all about social media after they do a few exercises. But I think that that's probably like maybe a 5% of the population that's in this gym.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not everybody. I mean, obviously social media does play a role, but it's not like it doesn't change the dynamic of how this gym is.
Yeah. It doesn't change the dynamic of this gym, but it has drastically changed the dynamic of the sport. When I first got started doing it, bodybuilding was pretty much a cult sport. You just didn't see a lot of people talking about it. It was like a real small group of people. You go into a gym and you see guys that would work out and, they were in good shape. But now you go into a gym, you see like at least, a quarter of the gym in there is, there's people in there getting ready for a competition or a show or something like that. Years ago when I first got into it, there was bodybuilding, but I feel like things like strongman and powerlifting were way more popular because you can turn on, any sports channel and there was a powerlifting competition going on, or there was a strongman competition going on. You rarely saw bodybuilding. Every once in a while you would see a bodybuilding show, but you really had to be looking for it and you had to know when, it was coming on. And it was only like the really big shows like the Mr. Olympia that you would see. Now, I mean, you can just turn on social media or the internet or something like that, and you have all this access to the sport. And now that, people have all this access, they're starting to learn a lot more about it, and you're starting to see more and more people that want to get into it.
See, that's interesting to me because I always thought like, years ago bodybuilding was way more popular.
No.
You depended on magazines.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
literally, when we first got married, I can imagine he had a footlocker of just issues upon issues because that's how they
like
did
my
their
dad.
they did their
Yeah.
research.
My dad still
Yeah.
has like stacks
Oh my
and
God.
stacks of
Yeah.
bodybuilding magazines.
I finally, we were moving out of like military housing because he was an MP at the time, and I'm dragging this footlocker out to the street where all the the dumpsters were, and I got the most nastiest letter from the garbage collector when I put them all in there, and he's like, "I'm not a freaking bodybuilder. You have to put all this shit in here. How the hell am I supposed to lift this thing up?"
Yeah.
But
But that was like your only access to the sport back then.
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like I said, you could turn on the TV and see a powerlifting competition going on or a strongman competition going on. But, to know, who won the Mr. Olympia, you had to get a magazine to find out who won the Mr.
I
Olympia.
guess that makes sense because
Yeah.
my perception is probably a little bit skewed just because
Yeah.
of my dad.
Yeah.
It was all about bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really about powerlifting.
Yeah.
Talks of strongmen, but
Right.
my dad was all I saw was bodybuilding magazines growing up, so I just assumed that was like way more popular.
Yeah.
No.
No, and they got expensive as they went along. I
Yeah.
mean, I can remember him. He's like, "I need these 3 magazines." I'm like, "Dude, those are like $7 a piece."
Yeah.
Well, or you better be using it for something.
Had to know what was going on, I mean, that's where you got everything. That's where you got your nutrition, your training, your training plans, how to pose, and which shows were coming up, and who was the top guy in the sport. I mean, that was your only source of information. You didn't have any internet. You couldn't really turn the TV on and see any of that stuff. I remember the first time I went down to Gold's Venice. This is back in the 90s. This was like 95 or something like that. And we went to Gold's Gym Venice, and that's the first time I saw like real bodybuilders, for the first time in real life, because even, in local towns, you may see 1 or 2 in your gym, but to see top, IFBB pro bodybuilders and some of the top amateurs, that was the first time, you really got to see, people like that in real life. And I remember when I saw him, I was like, oh man, I remember, that guy from the magazine, oh, that guy, and some of them weren't even like I said, pros. Some of them were amateurs, but they're, you even knew who the good amateurs were, who the top 5, amateurs in the world were. So, and you knew they'd probably get their pro card eventually. But now it's like, it's crazy. I mean,
Social media.
yeah,
Everything.
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
And in the magazines, you never read about protocol, ever. I mean,
What do you mean by protocol?
gear.
Oh, I see.
Protocol.
Okay. Yeah.
You never read about it. It just was something that was
Yeah.
never really talked about. Now it's so prevalent that I can talk to a kid who's like 19, and They're like, well, I'm on TRT, and it would baffle me. I'm like, huh? You haven't even finished puberty yet, you know?
Yeah, that's insane.
It is, and the thing is that quick fix with that, with the protocol and some of these really good trainers and not so good trainers, it's like you're not building a base. One of the things I do when I pose is the first hour, I always go over. No matter who's coaching these people, I'm like, what is your diet like? How much water are you intaking? I have them do soft poses so I can see their physique. And I'm like, all right, what exercises are you doing? And lastly, are you on anything? Because posing and conditioning are different between the two. You'll find, and he'll tell you this, a natural competitor will be way more conditioned because that's how they're going to win. It's not so much the volume because you can only put on so much muscle naturally. But I end up telling them, look, please be aware, because I've seen it, that if you go down this path young, you tend to not want to get off. You're not going to build your base. You can get bigger, but you can't sustain being big after you come off. And a lot of people probably disagree with me, but that's why I say build the base first. Patience. However, social media in our environment now, nobody has patience. They're posting. They want to have it all now. Well, if you want to have it all now, you're going to be done in about 7 years. Do you have enough enjoyment in the sport to continue, or are you going to be injured? Are you not going to grow anymore? What's going to happen to your blood? What's going to happen to your heart? What's going to happen with injuries because you're growing so fast, your body can't catch up. Can you sustain it?
I think it is posing an actual problem.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like in the bodybuilding world. It's just gym in general with social media. Everyone wants the quick fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even if it's not protocol, they're looking for what exercise is
Exactly.
going to be like the magic exercise. What diet's going to be the magic diet.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's just really doesn't work that way.
No.
People don't want to build a base. They don't understand the concept of building a base.
And they don't want to suffer.
Yeah.
That's the thing, suffering and patience, I do see people in the gym and they're like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm getting ready to do a show and I'm so depleted. And I literally, I watch the workouts. I watch what they're doing and I'm like, okay, first of all, are you putting in 110% into what you're doing? If you're going to, whether it's creatine, whether it's gear, whether it's SARMs, are you putting in that extra effort over and above and beyond to work out, or are you counting on that and just going through the motions?
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because, when you're going through your prep, you have everything planned out, but nothing ever really goes as planned. So to have that strong base and to have a pretty good diet going and training routine, that's always, to me, that's always going to outweigh whatever supplements you take. I've seen guys that step on stage, like me, for instance. The first time I stepped on an NPC stage, I knew I'd be going against a lot of people that were probably using, performance enhancing drugs. So, and I was natural, I chose not to use that at that time. And when I did step on stage with these guys, I knew all I had was, my hard work and my diet and my discipline and my ability to suffer. So I actually like one of those guys that actually probably likes suffering. I feel like the more I suffer, the better I would probably do on stage. I don't know if that's a good philosophy to have, but it's pretty much worked for me the entire time. But yeah, when you have a good base, like she said, stepping on stage, drug-free, or if you're using drugs, it's always better to have, a lot of years of training, behind your belt or under your belt. When I did the Tahoe show for the first time back in 2014, I think I had like almost 20 years of, training before I stepped on an NPC stage. I know I didn't have to wait that long, but it's, it's a choice that I made. I had some other things in life that I pretty much wanted to, focus on before I focused on, this hobby sport. I have kids, wife, family, work. Um, I was putting most of my focus in that. I was still going to the gym, but I wasn't, so much bodybuilding. I was just kind of a casual gym goer, looking to improve myself daily. But I was training hard, the entire time. And when I stepped on stage naturally, it showed, and I ended up winning, the competition. And with that, I also did a lot of natural competitions also, where, they do drug tests and they test you before the show, and they, sometimes they'll even test you after the show, um, or sometimes they'll just show up. You know, I've never had this happen, but they'll just show up in your town and say, "Hey, I need you to come. We're doing a show over here. We're in your town. Come on over. And do a drug test really quick." I know they did that with the pros in the federation that I competed in. It's never personally happened to me, but I've heard it. It can and it has happened. So it was one of those federations. They were pretty strict about about their drug test, but still, I know they probably had people that would still sneak through there and that weren't natural and jumping on stage. But you could tell when you competed in those federations where there's no there's drug testing and there's not a lot of competitors, but there are competitors that work hard and that look good. You could tell they have a lot of years of training under their belt. So like she said, right now, people want it quick. I kind of don't blame them to an extent, but the longevity and the sustainability isn't there. It's like she said, when you could be 20 years old and be doing great in the sport. 20 years old and you're a national level competitor and you're about to get your pro card or something like that. If you're using drugs, that's probably going to only get you to maybe 30 years old, 35 years old. Then what? Your receptors are crashed. You're a little bit depressed because you don't look the way you used to. You're dealing with all these things. To me, there's just not a lot of longevity in what a lot of the younger athletes are doing these days. They're not thinking so much about the future. And you know what? I was probably the same way when I was their age, but but
okay. No, you were. You were. So, like, right before we had met, he was in the military up in Herlong, and he was kind of powerlifting himself, okay? His bench, I think, naturally was like, what, 475?
yeah, I did a natural 475 bench.
But
Yeah.
he blew out both pecs. Yeah.
No, I only blew out one.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
One pec.
Yeah.
Got it reattached and was back in the gym 2 weeks later. So, I mean, and we see a lot. I mean, oh my gosh, there's one kid in the gym who I've known this kid since high school. And the first time I saw, and these are the competitors, these are actual grinding that people do it for the love of what they're doing. And I don't say sport because it could be strongman. I love strongman, but I knew what limitations I had. You have powerlifting and the bodybuilding, but athlete basically is the bottom line when you love it so much. And this kid, he had broke his arm. He had a cast from here to here. And he was in there as a sophomore doing single arm squats with the squat bar. Then fast forward years later, he messed up his knee. Didn't rehab the knee, so when you see him walk around the gym, the knee's kind of bent, and he is putting in 100% effort, everything that he does. And now he had, I think, a blown tendon in the knee now, and he's recovering, But the cool thing about this young man is his attitude when he walks in the gym is he wants to be there. He's excited to be there. Since the time I've seen him in early high school, he's always got a smile. He's always willing to train with somebody else. And, to me, this gym and this society, because that's what it is. I mean, it's a community, but it's a society unto itself. And people really want to belong to this society. And you see them when they come in the gym. And then they kind of filter out when they don't have the tenacity or that want as an athlete, like a lot of people here do. And they kind of weed themselves out. You know, it's kind of nice. You know, you come in. I was always that one person that was like, God damn it, why are you banging the damn dumbbells on the ground? We have pads for that. Or why aren't you re-racking your shit? We don't do that here, you know? And after a while, my husband's like, dude, you just need to back off. Somebody's going to go off on you one of these days. And I'm like, but if it happens, guess what? Everybody, you know, in circles. And it's happened, you know? It's like, look, this is a community. This is our family here. And if you want to be part of that, you need to act accordingly.
I think the big thing is just respect.
Yeah.
It's showing people respect. It's showing the gym respect. And I don't think that's a very hard thing to do.
No. But this generation, I hate to say it, but this generation, it could be hard because, and I'm not saying they weren't taught, but they're seeing all these people around them that don't show respect that are being successful, you know, and they're looking at them, you know, they're looking at these, you know, disrespectful younger people that are actually doing well in life. And they're like, I want to be like that person. But you know what? At the end of the day, you know, being a good person is
A supportive person.
and the supportive person is, you know, probably the most, you know, respect and most success that you can achieve. You know, if somebody says, you know, I like that person because, you know, they're respectful, they're professional, they're good to their self and to other people, instead of being, you know, I like that person because, you know, they're a jerk and they don't care, you know, and they say what they want. You know, that's, you know, to me, that's not the way you want to earn. That's not the way you want people to look at you. You know, it's not the way you want to earn people's respect.
I feel like you would go a lot farther just by like showing people more respect and just wanting to be at the gym and like you know just helping others out. If you are going into an environment with that disrespect and pushing people away, it's stunting your own growth.
Exactly.
You're only going to be as like good as the people around you.
Yep. And I see these people in the gym who, I don't see it so much in this gym, but I have seen in other gyms people are just jerks, disrespectful, and because they, you know, have a pro card or a lot of followers on social media, some of these younger guys look at them and, you know, like I said, say, I want to be like that guy, man. He's, you know, he's a jerk. He doesn't care, you know, and
I don't even think they see
And
it
to
as
me-
being a jerk. I
and
think
again,
it's like social media.
It's-
and
ego.
again, to me, there's no longevity. I don't care what type of money you're making. There's no longevity in having that type of attitude, you know,
Look,
and that type of
I
lifestyle.
think in this place, no one gives a shit about your followers or your pro card.
That's
or
a
any
good
of
thing.
that.
And
That's a
that's
good thing
happened.
about this gym. Yeah, that's what I like about this gym, because you're just a regular person.
Yep.
You know, nobody treats me differently because when I got my pro card, which I'm glad, because if they did, I'd be like, man, I can't even train here anymore. I might have to go somewhere else, you know, to one of these, you know, smaller places where people don't know me or something like that. But here, they just let you do your thing. They just let you, you know, train and for whatever event you're getting ready for. And that's another thing I like about this gym is that there's a lot of competitors here that you don't even know that are competitors. You got people that are getting ready for strongman, people getting ready for powerlifting, people getting ready for bodybuilding or something like that. And a lot of times you won't even know that, which is I see as a good thing, because that means there's a lot of people in one place with the same goal in mind that are working hard. Sometimes you go to some of these other gyms and you may see one or two guys working hard, and you know that guy must be getting ready for something. Here, everybody's working hard, and when you're constantly surrounded by those types of people, it makes you, you know, want to work harder and come to the gym. And you know, and even if you're a regular guy, you know, being in that environment, you know, makes you want to, you know, just come in here and work hard.
We have tons of people that aren't just doing those three sports too. We have people getting ready for like tons of other sports. Like I know of like triathlons
Like
or like
Freddie.
exactly.
Mhm.
And then swimming, you know, skiing, whatever it may be. but people are working hard regardless.
Gymnastics.
Yeah.
Always forget about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing, because it used to be, in a sense, it's evolved a little bit here. It used to be your sport, you were kind of siloed. You know, you're a strong man and they kind of kept to themselves. And you're the power lifters and you went into this one area. It's not like that anymore. You know, the camaraderie here it's awesome. And you can tell the people that are more veteran-like stay in shape year round. So people are constantly, if they're new, or if they follow, they come in for a day pass or start to come in to train, they're like, oh, he must be getting ready for something. It's like, no, that's what's instilled them, you know, Shalais, Gina, Robert, you know, yeah. There's so many of them there that constantly look the part, because it's a way of life and what they believe in, not the 15 minutes and like, you know what, I didn't succeed in that. I'm going to go try something else, but I'm going to post 50 side butt pictures in our bathroom. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong, because here's the thing. You're here. You're in the gym. And it used to be people wouldn't do that. I cannot tell you, and I'm sure, Brandon, you've probably heard maybe on the outside, people don't come because they're intimidated by this gym. They're intimidated when they walk in the door that they don't feel like they're going to belong. But I will tell you that the people that come here in this community are probably the most supportive, other than maybe one other gym that's in town, for these people, talking to them, welcoming
That's
them.
why I try to tell everybody, because I've heard that too, and it never made sense to me, because I never, like, even when I first came here, I never felt unwelcomed.
Right.
Yeah.
I never had that like stigma behind my like thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
but I hear people say that they're intimidated by it, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, I've
This
heard that
is
too.
probably
Yeah.
the nicest gym.
I know.
If you go to like a commercial gym, you're gonna find more assholes there than
Exactly.
you're gonna find way more problems there than you will ever find here.
Yeah, and staff there that won't like take care of you if something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've trained at those other gyms, and like I said, there's a place for them, and there's nothing wrong with them, but they're at the end of the day, it's a business for them.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
here,
it's not, and I'm not saying this place isn't a business, but it seems like they care a little bit more about their actual patrons than some of the box gyms. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with the box gym or some of the smaller gyms or anything like that. Well, no, actually I should say box gyms, because they're the ones that are mostly in it for the money, where you pay like all these fees and stuff like that. But so I mean, there's, like I said, there's a place for it, but here you pay a little bit more, but it's worth it.
Oh, but you don't. That's the thing. People will say,
I don't know.
Hold on.
Okay.
People will say, oh, it's so expensive. And I'm like, it is not. Because when you think about the amount of money that Tammy and Bob put in back into the gym, I mean, the new equipment, and I think that's what infuriates me, because it's like, oh, you're doing rack pulls, you're dropping 80-pound dumbbells on the ground. It's like, okay, look, dude, we don't do that here. Those bars cost this amount. Those dumbbells, if let's say myself go and pop them up and they're loose and they come down on me, it's a safety hazard. It's like, you need to treat this as the phenomenal place that it is.
The thing is, with all that kind of stuff, it's like there's ways to do it without damaging the equipment. Rack pulls. Don't do rack pulls. We have blocks.
Exactly.
They'll go up as high as a rack pull.
Yeah.
and it only shows you what they've seen a lot of times. It's that naivety in their training that they're not aware of. With a posing client, I could be like, okay, hey, I really need you to build out your back. What are you doing for your back? Are you doing pull-ups? Well, okay, that's a mainstay. Are you doing dumbbell rows? How are you doing them? How come you're trap dominant? How come you don't have hamstrings? Suffering, like, okay, you're on a depletion. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, okay, I'm not seeing your abs yet. I should be seeing your abs. You're this far behind. I need you to tell your coach. And that's usually what I will do. I'll be like, look, and in no way am I an expert, period. But I've been to so many comps. I've seen so many people in the gym, and I watch training methods from some of these trainers here. And also, like Charles Glass will be the one person that I watch on social media. But I take these things and that information, and you ask, what you may not agree with what they're doing here. They're doing phenomenal over here, and I would have never thought of. But people are so blinders. And yes, the basic lifts are good, but it's like, try this. Let's do this. Talk to your coach because maybe he doesn't know about this. You're getting ready for your peak week and you're going to water deplete. I'm a huge proponent in a slow depletion. Okay. And that's from watching him on a more natural setting, and it's safer. So you do your expel, you do your drip dry. I'm not a proponent of using Diazide or LASIK, because you can't control what you're seeing during the week. So it's like a flip. All right. How much cardio are you doing? Well, I'm doing stair climber for an hour. Excuse me. Okay. You've been doing that for, I don't know, 10, 16 weeks, 18 weeks. You need to change it up. How about you do this? It's going to be uncomfortable, but this is what I suggest. But at no time will I tell a client, and then people will, you need to leave that coach. I will, and how do I say this? Opposing coach half the time is like a bartender hairdresser. You're hearing it all. You're hearing how disappointed they are. They don't look good. You're hearing about how they don't feel their coach is paying attention to them and is maybe dropping the ball. But at the end of the day, when you're in this gym, any gym, you're going to have 10 different people telling you what you should do. But you should always remember you have one coach. And unfortunately, people don't do that. You know?
Yeah. I bet, and it's interesting you said something about all the exercises they do. I always try and incorporate a lot of the basics, with my clients, because you don't see a lot of people doing basics so much anymore. And, that's what's going to build a lot of that lean, larger muscle tissue, like doing just bench presses and deadlifts and squats and, stiff-legged deadlifts and, overhead presses and, all your dumbbell movements as far as your laterals and extensions. I see a lot of weird exercises going on lately. And I know a lot of that has to do with it being too much education out there. Somebody might see their
interesting way to put it.
A little bit too much education. You know what?
Well, there is just a shit ton of knowledge.
There's a lot of stuff out there, and some of it's good and some of it's not. But because I saw my favorite influencer that looks like this do this weird exercise, I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna work for me. And
everybody's different.
Everybody's different, and it might work. But one thing I do always stress, to my clients, because I do online personal training also, is your most important thing is going to be your diet. If you got a layer of fat, covering up that muscle, I'm not going to know, what do I need to do to better develop that muscle that that you also want to develop a little bit better. So diet's going to be most important. Your training. I'm not a real big cardio person, but if you need to do cardio to get yourself in that caloric deficit, then I'm going to have you do cardio. The only time where, I wouldn't have somebody do cardio is if they're already pretty lean and I can just, do some calories, manipulate their calories in a way, if, they're getting on stage or something like that, or they just want to lose, an extra 10 pounds or something like that. But, the diet is going to be most important, and doing a lot of the basic exercises that you don't see so much anymore. I do see people do them, but I see a lot of people not do it.
People like to just do whatever the fad is.
Yeah.
But the thing is too, I think about, because you said, Lisa, they have one coach, but they're hearing things from 10 different people.
Everybody has an opinion.
Yeah.
And I think about that too. I think a lot of people, because something might not be working in the moment, they immediately might write off their coach.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really work that way, because you're not allowing the coach to have time to learn you.
Correct.
Exactly.
And I think that's a huge thing. And so if you're bouncing from coach to coach, you're not allowing any of the coaches to learn you. And it's the easiest thing to just discuss, maybe ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Bring up ideas.
Oh, it's easier to talk shit than it is to go directly and to your coach and go, hey, look, I have a concern. This hurts. or this doesn't work. So sometimes they just don't do it. They won't do it, or they'll do it half-ass the exercise, and then they'll turn right around and go, I don't understand why I'm not seeing the process. Well, I can tell you why by looking at you. You know, what are you eating? Well, I'm doing this, this, and this. Okay, well, that's part of it. And here's the problem too for me is if anybody were to meet me, they would not know that I do anything in this type of realm. They would know that I'm posing. A bro is not going to come up to me and trust me to say, okay, she's going to help with my posing. But when I do get them, they understand the process. They understand, okay, this is how my body works. It's not how I want your body to look. It's what can you do to manipulate your body to look good. You know?
Unfortunately, that's the thing, though. Like, people look for the looks, and sure, that can play a role sometimes, but that's not the end all be all. Some of the best coaches out there may look like they've never even lifted a barbell.
Exactly.
I mean, look at top Olympic coaches.
Oh yeah. You know, and
fat old men.
You know what? And I feel like people put too much emphasis on coaches. Also, you know, for them to bounce around the way they do, they're putting way too much emphasis on what a coach can do. You could take a coach that has a top level athlete, and they're probably going to be a top-level athlete with or without that coach.
But genetically.
Yeah. I mean, years ago, you never heard about bodybuilders' coaches because they didn't have them, you know. They'd go in there and work hard and do what they needed to do in and outside of the gym to look the way they did. You know, coaches are great to have, you know, but all they're going to pretty much do is give you guidance. And they're going to give you an extra eye, you know, as far as, you know, how you're looking or something like that. I mean, you could take, like I said, you can take the best bodybuilder in the world, and he's still going to be the best bodybuilder in the world, probably even without his coach, because of his genetics, his work ethic, and what he's willing to do to be the best in the world.
I feel like the inverse is true, though.
Yeah.
Because it's like there are people who think that they know everything, and that are just digging themselves a deeper grave, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think it's, regardless of if you have a coach or not, you kind of need extra eyes no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if you're just stuck in your own way, in your own idea, that, like I said, it's just a rut. You're not going to grow from that.
Yeah.
And I've had a competitor, you know, doing posing, and it was like, oh man, your physique looks great. Okay, well, you really shouldn't be eating this, you know, self-coaching, guys self-coaching, but we'll ask, and this has been some time ago, you know, not recent, probably like a couple years ago, year ago. It's like you're self-coaching, but you're asking all these people what they think and what they should do. Well, when you compile that, you're not self-coaching. You know, you're a bit of chaos because you need to commit. And I tell people that if you're displeased, trust the process. I cannot tell you how many times.
That's a term I use all the time.
Oh my
Just
God.
please trust the process.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Believe in your coach, but do everything for, you know, to a T. And even, I mean, we've had competitors, both. One in particular competitor, I think you had for like 4 or 5 years, did everything to the T. Diet, workouts. I mean, never deviated from the diet. But when it came closer and closer, it's, I mean, we need to probably clean up the language, but it's a complete mind F. You know, you're high one day, you think you look great. And then the next day you're in the gym and you're in tears, you know, and it's like when I have 5 of those, you don't know if you're coming and going because you're just listening constantly. Okay, you know, yes, I understand. No, you're going to be ready. Just trust the process over here. No, you don't like that. You need to talk to your coach. I cannot tell you, and nor will I tell you what you should do. I can suggest you take it back to them, but I'll never say, look, this is what I feel, your coach is shit. That's not going to happen.
But that's a good quality to have.
You know what? And you said something earlier about learning the physique. And that's couldn't be more true because I haven't even learned my own physique. Every single one of my preps have been different. Every single one. And it can be challenging, you know, from day to day. You know, like she said, when you see your physique a certain way. You look good one day, but then a couple days later, you're working even harder and you're dieting even harder, but you don't look as good as you did a couple days before. So you have a lot of the ups and downs, like she said. But one thing I have learned is trusting the process, like you said. Just keep doing it, and and always do what works. And if something needs to change, it needs to change. And like you said, learning the physique is huge because mine changes like almost with every prep, And I've done probably about 30 shows, and every single one of them was different. And for people to say, for a coach to be able to say, I can get anybody, to where they need to be, they're lying.
Fallacy.
They're lying.
Bold statement.
They're lying because and I see it advertised all the time. I see it advertised all the time. But for you to say that, you really need to, take a step back and take a look at, yourself as a coach, because that's to have that godlike type of attitude.
Because those are the same coaches that refuse to take any responsibility.
Exactly.
And I feel like as a coach, you kind of have to take responsibility.
Yeah.
And the good coaches internalize. They really do. They'll go home, and I've seen it, in just discussions. They'll go home and they'll go, God, you know what? What is it I'm missing? What am I doing here?
Yeah.
And I literally, like, for posing, I have a very good friend, Goss. I don't know if you know who Goss is. So he used to come to this gym a long time ago, and his physique is just naturally, he's about your age.
Yeah, he's about my age.
Haitian, used to come in here all the time. And so when I have a competitor that I know has potential and really wants it, I will take them as we get closer to his house. He's got a setup in his gym. In his garage. And I'm like, okay, he can't see. Granted, he can't drive. He can't get on a moped, but he can't see. And he's like this with his phone, but he can spot on the body from across the room what is missing.
That's interesting.
Oh,
with your clothes on.
Yeah, you need to do this.
Yeah.
So we take him and over there, and then he's got such the flow. So it has saved our marriage quite a few times because when I do his posing, it's horrid. It's horrible. I think the last time.
No, it's not that bad. No, it's not.
The last time he got ready for the Chicago Pro, he's going into his posing, and I'm like, nope, do it again. Nope, do it again. So finally he hits his back pose, and I'm like, okay, perfect. We're not changing anything. And he goes, finally, I got something effing right. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm walking out, And it's not easy coaching a person that you're intimately or very good friends. My
That's
best
what I
friend.
wanted to ask.
Yeah.
It's like, how does the dynamic work?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Bad.
I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, because it's really no escape. It's like, I mean, you can't really do anything. You can't,
That's
I mean, it's like 24/7,
It's
like being coached, pretty much.
Yep. Well, are you sure you should be doing that? Are you doing that? How about you try this? And I just get the look.
Yeah, sometimes you want to break from. You want to be a normal person. You want to break from it, but if you and the person, your spouse or your partner, are living the life, it could be tough. I don't see how couples do it.
See, I've tried, and I've talked to Blake about this actually, because we've discussed like coaching your own girlfriend.
Yeah.
And it's like you can say the same thing over, and I can remember like specific instances of like past girlfriends. I would like say one thing and it just would not click.
No.
And then Blake would come up and say it word for word, the exact same thing, and suddenly it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, does that happen with you guys?
Yeah.
That's why Goss has always been our mediator. And I'm like, Goss, articulate, please. Because then he'll get sarcastic and he'll do things on purpose. And I'm just like, I'm done. Yeah. We still try, though. We still work at it.
Yeah.
And he still trusts me.
Yeah.
But, like you said, when you're with a significant other and you're doing all these things, it's kind of like, your parents. Your parents told you, oh, don't do this. And if your best friend told you to do it, you're like, I'm all in,
Yeah.
I don't know why. I literally don't understand
I swear
why.
it happens no matter what the sport is.
Yes.
And it's just a massive disconnect.
Yes.
Yep.
you're just being mean to me. You're
Yeah.
supposed to love me. Why are you so rude
Maybe
to me?
there's just too
I
much
don't.
emotion.
Yeah, I'm not that bad, but yeah, it can. Yeah, it can be pretty emotional. Yeah, and like I said, you need a break every once in a while. But you can't take one because, especially if you're in prep, you can't take that break. I mean, you get your day off or something like that, or if you're in really good shape, you get your refeed meal or something like that. But you never really. It's all actually part of the program, That refeed is part of the program. That day off is part of, the program as far as the prep is concerned. It's not like you can really breathe, throughout the entire ordeal until after, the actual competition.
Oh no, it's like, what are you doing home? Well, I'm waiting on you. We could ride to the gym together. And he's like, no. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're going to the same place. No. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I listen to my music and I disconnect. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
just be quiet. And he's like, nope.
Yep. You need your few minutes of
So you want that
disconnect.
ritual.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody has a ritual before you should have a ritual before you go work out. I don't care what it is. If it's drinking a Gatorade or a cup of coffee or or whatever you drink, before you work out, then listening to whatever music you listen to, or watching your favorite, video or something. Everybody should have something, before they should have that time break, from their regular day to when they go work out.
It's basically like flipping the switch.
Yeah, and you can't. There's been times, trust me, there's been times where I've gone straight from work, straight to the gym, and I can't get focused in the gym until almost halfway through my workout because I'm thinking about something that happened at work, So I encourage everybody before you go to that gym, you need to, flip that switch. And sometimes it takes a few minutes. Sometimes there's some type of ritual involved that, helps you flip that switch,
I think we all have those days where,
Yeah.
and sometimes that switch is just stuck.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm not flipping it.
Yeah. That's okay. Then that's when you know you need to take a day off. If you're mentally not, especially you powerlifting, is that what you do?
Yeah, powerlifting and strongman.
See, that is to me, that's so dangerous because you always have to be in the right frame of mind. Because if you're not, you can get hurt.
I mean, you just gotta make decisions. Like, I'm sure it's similar. Like,
yeah, you make good decisions, but come on, I mean, we almost had that A type of personality to even do stuff like that, and we're not really known for making good decisions, with all that testosterone in our body and everything.
But I mean, they are different sports.
Yeah, you're right.
And so, like, your switch is probably different than the way
Yeah.
I have to switch. Yours is more of a focus thing. Mine's like I gotta switch for like just a few seconds, and then switch back. And then switch.
But
it only takes a few seconds to throw out a
but I'm thinking,
shoulder or something.
Right? I'm thinking in your aspect, you're thinking, okay, mentally, your mental push past the pain and being very uncomfortable to hit, like, say, a 500 squat or a 450 squat, as opposed to I'm sitting in a machine. Okay, I'm going to do, a plate and a plate. All right, breathe. But no, you're fight or flight. You're either going to get that up or, let me ask you this. If you're in the frame of mind and your lift doesn't go well, how hard is it for you to come back from that, to go under, to lift again without that in your brain?
It just depends, because a lot of time, like for squat, for example, I try to just accept whatever outcome. And so, like, if it is a bad squat, then it's a bad squat, and I just have to, like,
move past that and do it again.
Basically.
See, and there's so many people that are like defeated, like me. If I didn't get it, I'd feel so defeated.
Yeah, you have a really good mindset for the sport.
At least I know with squat in particular, I feel like most people fail because of mindset.
Yeah.
With deadlift and bench, I would say it's a little bit different. But those are less scary than like a squat.
Yeah.
And so it's easier for you to get in your head for a squat. Just because deadlift, you can drop it. Bench, you can just rest it on your chest. But squat, you're under the bar, and that's kind of like, that's definitely the fight or flight.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to have that switch. I mean, I've had bad squats before, but usually I'll just if I know it's not there that day, I don't see the reason
In doing it.
Yeah,
in pushing.
exactly. Yeah.
But if it's like rocky, but I feel like that's why I try to record and so I can see kind of what it looks like from the outside. Then I can usually kind of get into the right mindset for it and put a lot of trust in my spotters.
And that's the thing. It used to be here before they did that whole room. There were only like a few spotters that I would even remotely trust to be behind me when I used to squat, because so many don't. Like I won't do a squat. I will not spot a squat because my thought process is if I can't lift that weight, why am I spotting you? I just don't have that comfortability. I'm like, yeah. And same thing with bench. You know, Sarah Dalkey here, freaking awesome form. Taught me how to bench so much better. And I'm sure that's kudos, you know, to Jeremy. But when I spot her, she gets so mad because I'm like, oh, it looks like you're struggling. Re-rack. And she's like, have you ever freaking touched that bar again?
Exactly.
I'm gonna give you.
It's almost, I almost like consider that like spotting a bench almost like an art form.
It is.
Yeah.
Because it's like you don't want to take it away, but you also don't want to like let them die. So
Yeah.
a lot of times,
Exactly.
the second they start slowing down,
Yeah.
I don't touch it until I see it start going down.
Mm-hmm.
And even when it starts going down, I'm not pulling it. I'm just gonna tap my fingers and let them struggle through the rest of the rep.
I need to learn that.
I feel
Yeah,
like
it's a good way
you
to do
get
it,
so
yeah.
much more out of it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. It's a good
It's
way
like
to do it.
lift-offs. I don't like spots with the lift-off. Only because, again, with that spotter and that technique, you get them and they're like this. And I'm like, I'm not even
And
locked.
so yeah, you got to get the
Yeah.
right person to do the right lift off, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why like bench in particular, I feel is like you kind of have to like spot a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
It always kind of frustrates me when I see people spotting on bench, and then they just rip the bar away from somebody,
Oh man.
and it's just like there was
Don't
no
even give him a chance. Yeah.
there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like because people aren't like almost back to the topic of struggling. People, I think struggling is a skill. So learning to struggle through reps,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be a very heavy rep or a very high rep set,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a skill in itself. And learning how to struggle through that, I think, just makes you a better athlete.
Yeah.
But people don't know how to struggle,
True.
They don't. They don't. Yeah. They give up.
and I feel like
Yeah.
that's got to apply to bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
think that's all things in life.
Absolutely. I
I
mean,
guess yeah.
you're right. Absolutely. I mean, there's times when you're dieting and you're like hungry. You might be hungry all the time, and it should. Hopefully, it's not until the end of your prep and you're getting pretty close to the show. But there's times where you're hungry all the time and you have to go train. And I'll tell you what, training when you don't have a whole lot in your stomach and you're feeling a little bit weak, that's a whole different monster than training when you're full of food and nutrition and everything. I mean, that's when the mental part actually comes in, or doing cardio when you're depleted and you're on low calories, on low energy. It's a whole different monster, and that's when the mental part kicks in. And a lot of people don't realize with that mental part, the component it actually plays in bodybuilding and what's going to happen when you get up there on stage. You have to be really used to being uncomfortable, and a lot of people don't want to be that way, which there's nothing wrong with, but that's one of the things you have to accept in probably pretty much any sport. Even if you're playing chess, I feel like there's a time when you're playing chess, you have to be all right with being uncomfortable.
I think you have to like kind of, and this applies to like chess and all sports, and like I see people, they get uncomfortable before they even compete, and it's because they're uncomfortable with the idea of losing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
I feel like if you reverted back to chess, you're only going to get good at chess if you get your ass kicked 1,000 times.
Right.
Yep.
And so why can't you just apply that to like doing whatever sport you're going to do?
And I think that the default there is now in times, because you can post and people are looking at, the social media, things like that, is when they don't feel they're ready and they have that anxiety and they start with the excuses. Oh, I'm not going to look, I'm not as lean because my coach didn't do this, and I'm a huge proponent of research. I have a couple clients now that they speak very minimal English. Okay. So I'm very hands on. And I'm like, okay, well, what's your trainer, in discussion? Is your trainer telling you about your reverse diet, which is huge? And the person's like, no. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Or what are you taking for this? And they tell me, okay, do you know what that does? Well, no, they just give it to me. And it's like, you have to research. Part of powerlifting, part of bodybuilding, part of anything in your life, we always teach our kid, don't take something because somebody gave it to you. Don't be stupid. And I think we've gotten to that point where there's a trust level. Somebody has the gift gab, or they see them look a certain way and they're like, here, okay, well, what does that do? What's that going to do for your body? Do you have a predisposed, disease, or there's high blood pressure, or kidneys, or something like that? Well, I don't know. That's what they just told me. It's like, no, you owe it to yourself to be informed and to research. It is okay to say no. And I think that a lot of these coaches in this gym are very much that proponent. They don't push. There are others that do, though. Be informed. Know what exercises you can't target. Know that drinking 3 gallons of water a week, all the way up to your competition's not a good idea. Eating donuts the night before you're going to compete, not a good idea. You haven't been eating that for weeks upon weeks. Why do you think that that's a good idea to put that in your body before you go on stage? It's just being informed.
I think like putting a client's health like as top priority is like very important. And people are afraid to do that because it's like they're not going to get the results that they want. And it's like, that doesn't matter. What matters is the health overall.
Right.
Exactly.
And I preach that big time. It's like, okay, I know you're going through this water depletion. Bring your water with you, because at the end of the day, if you need to drink, drink.
Exactly.
And you know what? The clients these days, they don't ask enough questions. They don't ask their coach, well, why are you doing this? Or why are you having me take this? Or, why are we doing it this way? They need to, it should be a learning process for, both parties, for the coach and the client.
I absolutely agree with that.
I feel like sometimes we have coaches that withhold information.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like the way I train people is I don't just tell them what to do. I try to explain why, and I like to actually have them learn.
Yeah.
And it's like, because just if them knowing what they are doing and why just will make them better.
Yeah.
They're more vested.
Yeah.
And so withholding information because you just want them to come back is insane.
They're going to come back regardless. If you're a good coach, they're going to come back regardless. You're not going to lose a client because, oh, I've learned everything my coach told me everything I need to know. What do I need him for? That doesn't happen.
And now I'm a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Classic.
Well, that does occasionally happen, but but it really doesn't happen that way, for the most part. If they leave you, they're going to leave you for other reasons, not because you gave too much information, And I do think, that does happen. And like I said, it should be a learning process for everybody, because if your client is learning, it's just going to make your job easier as a coach. You're just going to be able to, exchange information better. Your client's going to know what to look for in themselves that they can relay to you, so you can make better decisions for them. It's just better all around, for both of you guys to get together and it be a learning process for both of you. Yeah.
I think maybe part of not asking questions is like the uncomfortability part.
I can see that.
Especially if you're non-confrontational. Yeah. There are a lot of people that aren't.
It's like when you ask a question and show that you don't know something, it shows a level of humility. And people are afraid to do that.
Yeah.
It does lead back into like, I don't want to compete because I'm going to lose. And I always say that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whatever.
Yeah.
Whoever you're competing against doesn't matter.
Right.
These are sports for yourself.
Yep.
They're not sports for other people.
And a lot of people, they just don't see that. It's like that compares to like, say, CBUM. Okay, well, first of all, genetically, you look fantastic, but your body style is not comparable to his. And you're natty, he's not. So it's like you got to pick a relatable goal, I think. then I think there's less opportunity for disappointment and delusion, you know. And unfortunately, it goes again, like we talk about, it's a process that takes time.
Yeah.
You know, instead of looking at this person that's way up here and you're here just starting, that's not a realistic goal.
I feel like that's another thing people do is they instead of setting goals near them, they focus on a goal that's so far away and they miss all the steps in between.
Exactly.
I mean, one thing I always say in like powerlifting, in particular, is don't obsess over numbers. Because I always people will just start obsessing over like, oh, I want this, and now they're just focused on the number rather than the process to get there. And so when they're not getting there fast enough, it's gonna disappoint them.
Or their technique for you, right?
Yeah.
It's more of technique.
A lot of times, yeah. And I think, and so they're focused on that rather than the technique, and so going up too high, technique falls apart, and they're missing the base.
Right. Right.
And I think that's incredibly important, is just like setting the realistic goals, like you said, and not overshooting. It's fine to have those goals in the long run.
Yeah.
But if that's the only thing that you can see, you can't see.
You're missing everything in the process.
Yeah.
You're missing what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
Well, that's like bodybuilding. So you look at numbers, and a lot of times these people, especially women, are watching the scale, and it's like, watch the mirror and until you get to that point. Do the lifts, watch the mirror. It's okay to grow and get bigger. You can't sustain what you had on stage and grow. You have to be uncomfortable. You have to put on weight in order to put on muscle, and he can tell you that. But there's a lot of times they don't want to do that because they know how freaking hard it is to get the fat off, and they're like, I just want to lean bulk. And it's like, all right, but this isn't going to get you where you want to go.
And lean bulking is okay, but there's no really, I don't even call it lean bulking. I don't even know why that term is used. It should just be, eating in a slight surplus, because you can do that while eating pretty much almost anything you want, as long as you know the portion sizes and you know the macros that are needed for your body or something like that. When I hear people talk about lean bulk, and I'm thinking, okay, are they just eating chicken, rice, and broccoli and egg whites at a surplus? I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way in the off season. When you're trying to put on muscle, at the end of the day, all your body cares about is if you're taking in enough protein for protein synthesis, and if you're taking in enough carbs to have that energy to get through the workout. It doesn't care about so much where it's coming from in off season. It just wants to make sure that it's there. Once you start getting ready for your contest prep, of course you want to eat cleaner types of food. You want to eat your chicken, your fish, your rice, your potatoes, your oatmeal, and stuff like that. But these people who do this lean bulk, I'm not a big believer in that. I'm just a believer in eating a little bit of a surplus over what your maintenance is. So if your maintenance, for me, maintenance, I'm 205 right now. My maintenance would be like 2,700 calories a day. So to be in a surplus, I try and get my calories up to about 3,000, about 3,000 calories per day. And that's about it, and maybe I'll have a refeed or something like that. Maybe I'll have 2 refeeds during the week. Just depends on how I feel. Right now, I just competed about a month ago. Not so much in a surplus now. What I'm doing right now is pretty much, I'm at maintenance, and I'll do a refeed, once a week or something like that, where I'll have 3,200 calories or like last night. I had a pretty big meal last night because it was my refeed day, and I had, that rib cook-off is here in town, so so I had some ribs last night, but and I'm feeling it today, but but she's right. You do need to eat to put on muscle. You can't be in a deficit, and I feel like being at maintenance, it's not good enough to put on muscle either. You need to be in some type of surplus. But you don't have to do this lean bulking where you only eat certain types of foods. You can eat, other things also.
I feel like a lot of times it helps with like mentally for people though.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
But the caveat to that is you have some that have been in prep for so long and have lived that leaner lifestyle for so long, clean. Trying to get weight on them is just as bad as trying to cut them, because they're like, no, I don't want to, I don't want to get fat. I don't see the muscle. And it's like, no, it's going to be there. Just trust me, please, just trust. And a lot of trainers, I think, not just him, but a lot of trainers have that issue, whereas how about like with the powerlifting community, you have a certain weight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you find in your community that there are issues of trying to make weight?
Yeah. And a part of that, my opinion, is in the powerlifting community, like specifically, I think people focus too much on trying to make weight versus letting themselves eat comfortably and land wherever they land.
Eating right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And unless you are, setting national records or like trying to go to like the world stage, I think it's unnecessary, because that's hurting your performance. I'm fine with like a small cut, as long as you're maintaining a certain area. If you're obviously eating way too much and you're getting too big, that's another issue in itself. That's just being unhealthy.
Right.
But if you're trying to cut like 20 pounds, and you're doing it in a very short period of time, you're losing out on so much.
Yeah.
If you want to look better and lose, a certain amount of weight and get to a different weight class, that's fine, but do it over a slower period of time.
Exactly. No, that's 100%. And you'll find people trying to do it last minute to cut to the chase in bodybuilding. Like with him, he tries to do like a 16-week, 20 to 16-week cut.
Yeah, I do a really long cut, but that's what works for me. I mean, I know I could do a shorter cut, but I don't know if I would look the way I do when I do a longer cut. When I do a longer cut, it almost turns more into a lifestyle for me, and makes you would think the long cut would be harder, but to me it's easier because I'm able to just slowly ease into, every step of the prep. It's not just, okay, I'm this many weeks out, I need to do this. I'm this many weeks out, I need to change that. It's just a slow process,
Because what is it? 21 days to form a habit.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So like you're building. The habit.
I tell people 3 weeks. If you get somebody to go to the gym for 3 weeks, they might there's a good chance they're going to keep going to the gym.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's like with posing. I can tell you the majority of the people I get are like the last 6 weeks. You're like, Jesus. But I always try to say, if you can start 16 weeks out with posing, and it could be once every 2 weeks or once a week, what I'm showing you and how your body should look is only going to prove your lifting, because so many people do like the wrong exercise. Let's say a lat pull down. I want your rear delts, I want your lats to look good, but I'm looking at you and you're trap dominant. Well, okay, so that tells me that you're probably not doing some of your lifts properly. So when we go through it, I'm very hands-on. Okay, this is what I need. Lat spreads are the hardest. Even resting lat spreads are the hardest for people to get, men and women. They're so concentrated on trying to move everything else in their body when it's effortlessly just that portion of the back.
I think that's a thing people misunderstand is posing in general. I'm sure like newer bodybuilders they have an idea like, oh, this is easy. I think that's one of the hardest parts about the damn sport.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
the posing is hard.
That shit makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
I've like, messed around and I'm like sweating.
Yeah.
Within minutes.
Cramping. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I got this. Oh,
And
no.
and one thing people don't realize, the hardest thing for me next to posing is the sleeping. I mean, sleeping is, people say, oh, don't you have a problem with the diet? Don't you have a problem with, the cardio or, all that stuff comes easy to me, It's the sleeping that's hard. And I think it's because sleep is a lot of times it's something that you can't control. You can control your diet, you can control your training, but when you go to sleep, it's kind of a gamble. Am I going to sleep good tonight or not? you know.
I mean,
your body's
there's
constantly-
still
Yeah.
like sleep hygiene you can do, but
Yeah.
it's not 100%, especially if you're cutting.
Yeah.
You're doing certain stuff like that will affect sleep.
Yep, and and sleep is very important because recovery is one of the most important parts of bodybuilding and period, and especially if you're prepping for a contest, got to get to sleep in, and that's the hardest part for me, you know, and that's the one thing I worry about is, am I gonna get a good night's sleep, you know? Is all the work that I've done that day gonna be for nothing because I don't get, you know, the type of sleep that I need? So, yeah, the sleep is tough. You know, then, you know, of course, the posing, you know, it's one of the things people, you're right, they don't anticipate how hard the posing is. But you know, when it comes to the prep, you know, just getting in that recovery is tough. It's a tough one. Yeah.
I feel like it's very important.
Yeah.
Well, I hear people like complaining, oh, I got to deload. And they're like down, you know, people that are real aggressive lifters that love it so much. It's a deload week. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, no, I hate it.
That's another thing is like going too hard and not knowing when to like back off. I think people need to realize like that's very important. Because there is diminishing returns. You
Yeah.
are going to exhaust yourself.
Yeah.
Your CNS is only going to be able to handle so much.
Yeah.
And so like I'll give deloads to people when I can tell that they definitely need it. And I just pray that they listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, no, there's some
Yeah.
in there.
That'll be a
that-
tough one for me too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
I knew one coach who had her client, and I thought it was pretty hysterical. She had her watch sync to I think it was her watch sync to the coach's watch. So that coach knew when this person was
Doing
not,
doing
was
activities?
doing stuff they shouldn't
Ooh.
be doing.
that's pretty smart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is. Dang.
I can't remember, but
That's
I know she
almost
had an
too
app.
much control.
That
think
does
so.
open up
Yeah.
another like
Yeah.
box of problems.
Yeah, what if? Yeah, never mind. I'm not even gonna go into that.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
variables there.
Yeah, what are you doing right now?
Why is it? Why is
I'm
your
not in the
heart rate
gym.
skyrocketing?
I'm not in the
Yeah.
gym. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate having you guys on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any final words or anything?
Shoot.
Stay
Yeah,
healthy.
Yeah, I mean,
Just stay healthy.
you guys that are getting into the sport, be careful. You know, ask questions. It's not all about the drugs and, you know, what you see on social media. You know, it's about being healthy and, you know, reaching your goals by working hard and, you know, building character at the same time. Sometimes I think that doesn't really get emphasized as much as it should as far as, you know, the character qualities that you do gain by, you know, doing something that's good for you every day, you know, day in and day out. You know, I see people that do things that are bad for them day in and day out, but, you know, and I see how that affects their character. So, you know, if you're doing something good for yourself, you know, that's going to affect your character also, you know, in a more
Absolutely.
positive way. So, there needs to be more of an emphasis on, you know, when you're doing the clean lifestyle, it cleans up, you know, the type of person you are on the inside also. Yeah.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming
We
on, guys.
appreciate you.
Yeah,
Thank you
appreciate
so
it, man.
much. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.